Alright guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope we're all learning a thing or two. So we're back on our episode. This is the third episode for the course Introduction to Adobe Photoshop. In today's lesson we'll be looking at adjustments and the concept of smart objects within Photoshop. So without wasting much time, let's jump right into our app and then open it up. Alright, so there's something we call image size, image data size, dimensions, and resolution that I was supposed to take you guys through, I think in the first or second video, but I went through and I found out that I didn't really made mention of that, so I'm going to do that very quickly, and then we move to discussion or topics for today. So when you're about to create a new file, you realize that you come up with this dialog box which has the name, the width, the height, the resolution, the color mode, and what have you. Now what you have to put at the back of your mind is when you are designing in Photoshop, you're either doing two things. You're either designing for digital, you are designing for print. So digital in terms of social media or TV, yeah, something like that, or digital billboards, what have you. But print, the other way around, your billboard, you're printing flyers out, you're printing business cards and all that. So those two things, when you're printing, when you're starting to, you need to know the end goal of whatever you're designing. Is it for print? Is it for digital? That has to translate into what resolution you are going to use, the width and the height, and so on and so forth. So image size is basically the physical size. So you realize if you look here, we have dimensions, we have inches, we have centimeters, we have, so let's say you're printing a flyer and you want it to be 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters, right? You choose centimeters and then 10 centimeters. So that refers to the physical size. So physical size in terms of when you are going to print it out, what size you are looking at, right? But if it's purely for print, if it's purely for digital, then you are mostly going to be working in pixels. You realize that if you open, let me demonstrate something here. Size of Facebook banner. Realize that anytime you do a search of anything digital, the size of a Facebook banner or the size of maybe WhatsApp DP or so on and so forth, it always gives it to you in pixel, because print and anything digital has the dimension has to do with the pixel. I'm not going to go much into it. Since you're beginners, I don't want to really confuse you guys. So when it's digital, you have to know the dimensions. So whatever you're designing, you need to know dimensions. That's mostly in pixels you insert it. But if it's for print, then you know the dimensions of the physical, at the end of the day, the physical size. And the resolution here, which is the DPI, the dots per inch, or the pixel density, is how in depth the pixels are, or how many pixels are available within an image. All right, so let me open a file here and let me see how I can demonstrate this or explain this very simple. Okay, so let me open something like that. Now so these are the pixel. This is a pixel. Let me open a selection. So this is a pixel, this another pixel, this another pixel. So DPI is the dot the dots per inch or pixel density is basically how dense or how many pixels are available within an image. So when you are designing for print, the rule of thumb is when you are designing for print, you usually design in a very low resolution, because when you go to the print side, they usually blow it up and so on and so forth. But when designing for digital, you always make sure that you have a higher resolution, because the image is going to be traveling across different screen sizes, and you don't know the resolution on those screen sizes. So the best way is to have a high resolution so that whatever screen size appears on is going to be clear. Let's get back to our class today. We'll be tackling adjustments, color adjustments, and then adjustment layers, and also the concept of smart objects. Now let me open an image and touch base on a couple of. So let's open this image. So let's say you have this image, right? Now color adjustment, when you apply color adjustment to an image or a layer, it becomes destructive. That means when you apply it and you save it and you close your file and you open it up, you can't go back to your original image, right? But the adjustments layer allows you to change whenever you open and close it. Now to apply a color adjustment, you click on the layer, you go to image, and then you click on adjustment. You realize that it brings up a lot of adjustment. There's brightness, levels, curve, exposure, vibrance, black and white, lots of them. So I'm just going to touch base a couple of them. So let's say you click on brightness and contrast. Realize that as soon as it starts to toggle with the brightness, it affects the image. So you can play around with this. You can increase the brightness, increase the contrast of the image to fit whatever work you are doing or how you want it to look like. If you are designing an image and you want it to be very dark, then you go with it. If you want it to be very bright, and then you go with it. But like I said, it's going to be very distractive. So in this case, if I press OK, I've accepted the changes. Now you go to the layers panel. If I close this file right now and I open it, I won't get back to my original size. So let's undo that. Ctrl Z. So this is my original image. If I redo what we just did, that's redo brightness and contrast, and I save this file and I open it, I'm not going to get my original file. Now that's the difference between the image adjustment or color adjustment, or the adjustment panel here. If you don't have the adjustment panel open, you can go to Windows on the menu, and then click on adjustments. It will pop up that panel. So in this case, the adjustments, let's do the same brightness and contrast. So when it brings out the brightness and contrast, you realize that this is different. Instead of attaching the adjustment directly to the layer, it has created a new layer. So what it means is that if I move and I make whatever changes I want to make to the layer, and I save or open it later, this adjustment panel is not destructive. It doesn't affect the original image. So when you come to the layers panel, the eye icon, when I click on it, that means to disable that layer. So you realize that we are back to our original image. We can hide or show it. The difference between the adjustments here, that's image adjustments, and that of the adjustment layer is that the color adjustment is destructive. It affects the original file, and then if you save it and you open it, you can't get back your original file. But in the other way around, the adjustments panel, it creates a new layer for you. Means you can play around and then always disable or enable it based on what you are working with. Right. So let's look at other adjustments too we have. So you have the black and white. You can make an image totally black and white. There are other details you can do to it. You can tint, instead of all black and white, you can tint it with a particular color, either red, maybe greenish, so on and so on. So this with this adjustment, you mostly have to play around with it, know what each of them does. We have a lot of them, from brightness, levels, curves, exposure, vibrance, hue and saturation. Just affecting the colors within an image. All right, affecting the colors within an image. So there are a lot of adjustments you can play around with. So brightness, levels, curves, black and white, color balance, photo filter, and so on and so forth. Right. But there are a couple of the color adjustments here that are not available in the adjustment panel. So let me click the layer, and then you come here, adjustments. You realize that we have a couple of them. We have shadow and highlight, match color, replace color, equalize color. Some of them are not available here. Well, it means that if you're applying any one of them here, you have to be very careful that that's exactly what you want. Because like I said earlier on, if you save it and you close the file and open it, you've distracted the original image, meaning you can't get it back. You understand? Meaning you can't get it back. So let's say, let me open a file and explain the replace color this image. So you have a white, pure white background. You have a pinkish leaf and I think branches or brown branches. So let's apply the same thing here and try to change the white. So replace color, select white, and then the results, we want it to be a different color. I think this is very self-explanatory. So based on how you want the colors to be at the end, you select that. Right now, there is a concept of you having a layer, but you want to change just an aspect of the layer. You want to add adjustments to just some aspects of the layer, not everything. So let's say you have this image and you want to only affect just the black. So you go back to your selection tool. Like I said, we've discussed a lot of selection, quick selection, magic, and so on and so forth. In this case, I think we use the magic to select the black aspect. What it means is that when you are applying the adjustments layer or the color adjustment on the adjustments layer, it's only going to affect where you selected, and then invent. So event, like there's the opposite of the color, something close to that. So you realize that it's only making changes to where has been selected. So let's undo this and then deselect. So the deselect is simply cancelling whatever selection you've made. So that's the concept of adjustments. You can play around with them, like I said earlier. So you have brightness, post threshold, selective color, gradient map, color lookup, photo filter, and so on and so forth. Lots of them. Now what we are going to do next is to get into the concept of smart objects. Now smart objects comes into play mostly in Photoshop, because Photoshop usually works with raster images and not vector images. So Photoshop as a software usually works with raster images. Its cousin, the Adobe Illustrator, mostly works with vector images. So the number one difference between a vector image and a raster image, the difference is that vector images do not lose their pixel density. It doesn't pixelate when you increase or decrease the size as compared to a raster image. So let's say you have a raster image, right? Let me open a new canvas. Let's say 3000 by 3000 pixels. let's open any image. Open a simple image. Let's open this flower. Right now, this is a raster image. This is the image size. This is the high quality image we've imported into Photoshop. You understand? Let me drag this and open it or send it to the new canvas. So you realize that the size has decreased. This is all dependent on it is because of the pixel ratio. The document I have here is 3000 pixels by 3000, but the image itself is 500 pixels by 500 pixels. So that means if it finds itself in a document with a higher DPI, the size is going to decrease automatically. Now what that means is that when you resize, when you open it up and save, close it back, and you open, you realize it starts to lose its resolution. It starts to pixelate as compared to the original image. So we have a very small image. Whereas as I continue to open and close the image, increase and decrease the image, it starts to lose its, it starts to pixelate, it starts to lose its think in layman's terms, in its quality, so to say. It starts to lose its quality. That's where the concept of smart objects comes in. Now smart object basically means Photoshop is working on a copy of the image and not the original image. So let me delete this file. So the image itself, this is the image, this is the original image that we imported. So this is the highest quality of the image you have. It's 500 pixel by 500 pixel at 72 dpi. As soon as you start to play around with the image without making it a smart object, and you start to increase or decrease the image based on what you are working with, at some point you are going to start losing its resolution, its quality. So what you do is to make that when you import an image, you make it a smart object, so that what you are telling Photoshop is that keep the quality of the image somewhere else and play around with the copy of it. So how do you make a layer smart object? You select the layer and then you right click and then you convert to smart object. You realize that near the layer you have a small icon, a file icon at the bottom here. Let's close the image you imported. We're not saving it. So what it means is that you've imported a file. You are telling Facebook to use. You are telling. What it means that you've imported a file and you are telling Photoshop to work with a copy of the file and maintain the quality of the original file. So we have the smart object here. Anytime you double click on the file icon at the bottom, it opens the original file for you, right? What that means is that you can play around with the size, open, decrease, increase, and you still have your quality. So let's be mindful of the rasterized image or raster images we import into Photoshop and work with. Always try to convert to a smart object before you start playing with the size of the file. So that brings us to the end of today's lesson. We looked at image size, dimension, resolution in regards to before starting any work at all. You need to be mindful whether it's going to be print or it's going to be digital. We also touch on the adjustment layer. So practice makes man perfect. So just apply them and you know how and when to use it. Some of them are very self-explanatory, like the brightness we talked about, the black and white, and so on and so forth, the replace color under the image. And also look at smart objects, right? So we are going to end today's lesson here. Hopefully next week we'll design an artwork, either a flyer, a business card, a letterhead, something so you can appreciate whatever we've discussed in the first, second, and today's lesson. So we are going to apply all what we've discussed over these 3 lessons, and then apply them to develop an artwork together. So thank you once again for subscribing to my channel. Thanks for all the likes and the comments. I appreciate all of them. And let's share the channel to our friends and families. And thank you very much for joining today's lesson as well. Thank you, and see you next week.